Good afternoon, everybody. Before we get started, I would like to thank Union Baptist Church and Reverend Andre Bradley for opening up their doors for us to host today's panel. And at this time, I would like to invite Pastor Bradley to come up and say a few words and lead us in prayer before we kick things off. You give him a round of applause.
This is the day that the Lord hath made. We ought to rejoice and be glad in it. We are excited to have this opportunity to glean, to grow, and to develop. We work together collectively as a community so that change is actually made. It's a term called Christendom, literally where the church and the community meet together and forge relationships that move us forward and not in reverse. And we can't do that in silence. We can't do that without one another. We are each other's key. And if we are to be what we should be, then it takes all of us coming together to work together for a common purpose and a common good. And for that is exciting. And so on behalf of myself, the entire Union Nation family, my wife, Lady Bradley, our son, Andre, who is somewhere in the vicinity. Amen, that's my guy. He got a big sweatshirt that is to the Union Church, to the wonderful ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Welcome again to the Union Church. Let's pray together and petition God, and then we move forward together. Eternal God, we thank you so very much for goodness, grace, growth, and mercy. Let these moments we share together productive to your glory, to your satisfaction. God, we thank you for opportunity for us to grow and to not be stagnant, for us to receive information so that we might build generationally, not just for ourselves, but for the generations to follow, that we are blessed when we leave an inheritance for our children's children's children. And so, God, teach us how to do that even better, not just for ourselves, but to leave a lasting, living legacy. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Bradley. Today's panel, A Current Affair, Preparing for Life Before and After, is being brought to you by the Omicron Upsilon chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in conjunction with the Cultural Pearl Foundation. And at this time, I'd like to introduce to you our president of the Omicron Upsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Sharika Tate.
Reverend Bradley and everyone at Union Baptist Church. I just want to say on behalf of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, we are here to serve all mankind, and so that is our mission in being here today for this important event, is to uplift our community and be here in any way that we can. And so just know that we are a resource to you and for you, and so we really thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I'd now like to introduce the president of the Cultural Pearl Foundation Incorporated, Ms. Dana Wadsworth.
Sorry, thank you so much again to Union Baptist, to Pastor Bradley and Lady Bradley for having us. Thank you to our panelists for being here. We appreciate you. The Cultural Pearl Foundation, for those of you that don't know, is a 501c3 foundation founded in 2009. Born out of members of the Omicron Upsilon chapter of Alpha Kappa Sorority Incorporated. We are so grateful as a foundation to be able to support and fund programs like these and many others. So please, if there's anything else you feel the community needs, we're happy to partner with Union. We're happy to partner with Alpha Kappa Alpha, and we love to fund these programs. So if there are other things that you'd like to see, please let us know. Again, although we are not AKA officially, we do love to support all mankind. So thank you so much. And let's enjoy.
Thank you so much, Dana. Finally, I'd like to introduce Shirley Toby, chair of our Armchair Chat series and our Building Our Economic Wealth Committee on the Omicron Upsilon Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
for coming. It was such a pleasure. This is our first armchair chat as in person. We've been having armchair chats online due to the pandemic. So it's a joy to be able to connect in person, meet each other, and also to have a space for learning and growing. So once again, enjoy, indulge in the food. There's more if you need some or would like some, no judgment. And have your ears and your hearts open to just receive anything that is necessary for you. We have index cards, so please make sure if you have any questions, with the little church finger up, or your index cards, and we'll go around and collect them to make sure that your questions are answered. Okay? Enjoy and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Now, the goal for this afternoon's panel is to ensure that you all leave with the advice, knowledge, and tools needed to plan for a moment that will comfort all of us and our loved ones. This is a topic that can be uncomfortable to some, and at times can be uncomfortable to talk about in your own household. Why? Because no one ever wants to talk about that. No one ever wants to think about a plan or discuss it, and that's totally understandable. But would you believe me if I told you that roughly 40% of Americans will leave behind a financial burden to a loved one in the event of their near death? And amongst the millennials, I see a few in here, thank you for coming, 44% are not financially ready to deal with the unexpected death of the family breadwinner and your dinner table with your family, and start getting your affairs in order. There's a quote that a colleague of mine mentioned, and I had to put it in the speech. The best protection is preparedness. So let's get prepared and let's welcome our panelists. First, we have Maxine Jeffers. Maxine Jeffers is a principal attorney at the law office of Maxine Jeffers, PLLC, where she advises clients in New York on estate planning strategies, including wills, trusts, powers of attorneys, and advance directives, represent executors, administrators, and beneficiaries in probate and estate administration proceedings, handles guardianship, matters in surrogates court, and counsels families on long-term care planning, Medicaid, eligibility, and law matters. Prior to her law attorney, she had a previous career in healthcare as a registered professional nurse with a background in nursing informatics, bridging technology, and patient care to improve healthcare delivery. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Howard K. Hill is an award-winning businessman, dedicated husband, father, and mentor, known for his transformative influence on Connecticut's business and cultural landscape. Originally from Windsor, Connecticut, Howard attended Southern Connecticut State University before pursuing a career as a licensed funeral director and embalmer. Initially under the tutelage of his uncle in New York City, later returning to Connecticut, where he founded Howard K. Hill Funeral Services over 2 decades ago in 2004. Howard's achievements go beyond funeral services. As a visionary and leader, he made history as the first African American to serve 2 terms as president of the Connecticut Funeral Directors Association. In 2004, he continued to break barriers, assuming the role of ex officio chair of the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce, having previously served a groundbreaking 2+ year tenure as the Chamber's first Black chair in its more than 200-year history. His passion for addressing community disparities led him to establish the Black Business Alliance of Connecticut, an organization that promotes Black-owned businesses and fosters entrepreneurial growth, along with many other great achievements. Howard is devoted to creating spaces where individuals not only survive, but thrive. For him, failure is not an option. Please give Mr. Hill a round of applause. Karen McLean, Dr. Karen McLean is the department chair and associate professor of social work at Western Connecticut State University in Danbury, Connecticut. She obtained her PhD and MSW from the University of Connecticut School of Social Work in West Hartford, Connecticut, and her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from the University of Connecticut in Stores, Connecticut. Dr. McLean has over 27 years of social work experience in social welfare policy, working both as a social worker and fair hearing officer. Dr. McLean's research interests include decolonizing social work practice, the self-care needs of undergraduate social work students, and promoting culturally relevant teaching pedagogy. Did I say that right? Thank you. Dr. McLean also co-authored a book titled Contemporary Social Work Practice, Integrating Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Dr. McLean is an active member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a national board member of the National Association of Social Workers, Washington, D.C., the Connecticut Innocence Fund, Community Matters Psychiatric Outpatient Clinic in Hartford, Connecticut, and the Creative Climb Academy, a comprehensive homeschool and family outreach program in Copper's School. Last but certainly not least, Justin A. Stevens joined Maryland drawn up on his corporate financial reporting and cash flow management experience to provide clients with a roadmap to achieving their financial and professional goals. He also offers corporate retirement plans services to corporations and profits. Justin earned his bachelor's degree in finance and a minor in business law from Pennsylvania State University. He is a certified investment management analyst, professional sports and entertainment accredited wealth management advisor, and holds the designation of certified plan fiduciary advisor. Let's please give him a round of applause. Now, because this is an armchair chat, I am going to have a seat. Now, let's chat. So I want to open up the panel with a question to all of you individually. How important is it to openly discuss finances and life financial development?
So, really quick, the importance of estate planning, I just want everyone to know that, it provides for your family members, especially your minors and your dependents. So it's definitely something that needs to be discussed in the home. It avoids disputes and legal complications when you have these discussions with your family members and they know your needs and your wants. And what I say to everyone is that it's one of the greatest gifts you can give to your family, is making sure that your affairs are in order, that your estates are together. It's a gift, because if they don't have that, order before you pass away, there's emotional and financial stress. Like in my home, my mother always had a box, and everything was in that box, and we spoke about it a lot. We always spoke about what would happen when my parents would pass away, because unfortunately, just a reality. So, I know a lot of people like to say that if we discuss it, it's going to happen. It's not the truth. It's going to happen no matter what. So it has to be discussed. So it's very, very important.
I would echo be prepared to have to deal with people, surviving family members. We need come into the office on average. We're going to need to answer roughly 130 to 150 questions. They're critical questions that we need to have in order to serve families. When you're distraught, you can't think clear and sometimes make irrational decisions. So we always advocate for people to be prepared before you need to deal with it. I'm not sure if anyone here has ever heard of anyone who has died, but if you're human, we're all going to die. And I see some young children here today who are absolutely beautiful. We see older people, everyone in between. This is a beautiful seminar. I want to congratulate this chapter of the work. It's critical. But this is a community conversation, and everyone needs to be a part of this process. Okay. And just to give you an idea that I'm sure this will be discussed shortly, but when you're planning, Don't, don't think it's too early to plan. Okay, so I see the young children here today. I have an insurance agent, and he was encouraging me to purchase different types of insurance, overhead insurance for my business, umbrella insurance. We also talked about life insurance. This was a long time ago. Daughter was still not there. He was close to being born. And he told me a story about how he put insurance on one of his children. It was a newborn. Look at this. What are you doing? He said, putting insurance on my newborn because with insurance is the death table. So the closer you are to the age of 100, the more your life insurance premium will cost. So he the insurance company in his mind, beat the insurance company by getting life insurance on a newborn. And he put this huge death benefit on premiums. Why is it so much? He said, well, this is my hidden bank. I will let the financial advisor talk about that.
Hashtag hidden bank, guys, keep that, we're gonna get to, Justin, we're getting to that.
What everybody else said, it's very important to plan ahead. As somebody who was a caregiver who recently lost a parent, the planning ahead made things so much easier so that there was space to be able to actually breathe. Because it's enough when you're going through the process. And for a lot of people, you may not have buried a loved one before. So when you're thrown into burying someone very close to you, you don't have time for the processing and trying to plan this and trying to get that. Where is this and where is that? That's just additional stress that can be alleviated if the discussion is had well ahead of time. So it's just critical. Leave it there because we got a lot to discuss.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just very happy to be here with you guys today and on this very important topic, the goal planning from an investments perspective, from a financial perspective. When I sit down and speak with people, it's very important to talk about how we're going to build your wealth and build your assets, but that protection piece of if something were to happen to you or changes in your life. It's very important to make sure that you're protected in those circumstances. And especially as we have a conversation about life insurance, I just want to provide some information around just good questions to ask. I feel like sometimes, a lot of times when you talk about life insurance, people either aren't asking the right questions, aren't goal oriented around how they're structuring their life insurance products, and may not understand the complexities of life insurance. So I want to touch on a number of these topics throughout the conversation.
Amazing. Glad you brought up life insurance. Hold that mic up. We're going to start with you. So let's talk life insurance. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Great. So let's talk life insurance. What's the purpose of life insurance? Why is it important? Who should have it? And is it ever too early to take out a policy? Clearly we know it's not too early. Hashtag hidden banks. So let's talk life insurance.
So there's life insurance essentially is a way to transfer assets to your next generation or important people in your life. So you can buy life insurance on key people in your life. From a standpoint that there's different types of life insurance. There's whole life insurance. This is the type of insurance that we were just talking about that you can purchase on anybody. Essentially, that time frame of the coverage will cover you for your whole life, and ultimately, as you pay into this whole life insurance policy, there's investment aspects underneath the covers of how options to invest within the life insurance policy. As it grows, there's opportunities to kind of lend against those policies. So typically, it's easier to purchase life insurance when you're younger or you don't have health issues. As you get older and as you develop different health issues, it makes it much harder to establish new policies for life insurance. Also, there's life insurance that you're paying for buying for yourself. There's life insurance that you're probably very familiar with that your company may provide. Typically, the insurance that your company provides, that lasts during your tenure with your company. So if you terminate from service, you may no longer have that life insurance coverage that you had through your company. Looking at those plans, sometimes you have an option specifically around retirement of paying to extend that coverage from your company. And that might be a great way, say if you develop some health issues along the way, being able to pay and continue that coverage that you had through work is a great way to extend that coverage period. So whole life, again, options for investments within the policy. It's going to be more expensive from an overall standpoint of that it's going to obviously cover you for a longer period of time as opposed to term life insurance. When we look at term life insurance, it's insurance that might cover you for a specific period of time, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Typically, when we sit down with people, we look at the purpose of term insurance. It might be primarily to look at covering specific expenses, large expenses that, say the primary breadwinner in the household passes away. For instance, your mortgage, your tuition for your kids. Thinking about aligning those time frames. If you have a 30-year mortgage, you might want to have a 30-year term policy to make sure that you are covered during that period of time for it. Again, if you're to pass away, thinking about how your family may be paying for some of those larger expenses. And the third, really important, if you're a business owner, a small business owner, there's life insurance to really help protect your business. Talk about this a little bit, but it's called key man insurance. So think about if you are the primary person in your company and you were to pass away, thinking about your partners and the capital that they might need to really backfill what you do, for the company. So that's another way to really protect yourself and your company if you were a sole practitioner.
Amazing. Is there like anything that you'd like to add on to that?
Sure. I thank you for that. I think, in our experience, there needs to be a universal education for the Black community about life insurance, about insurance as a whole. For example, from time to time, we will get people who come in, they will produce a life insurance policy or what they think is a life insurance policy and expect that the insurance policy will take care of the funeral. And only to find out that this policy is accidental dismemberment policy. So that is a very, very specific type of insurance that does not cover life unless the death happens as a result of an accident or dismemberment. Now, if you're educated about life insurance, you will understand that you can check this thing called a rider on your policy and get the accidental dismemberment. So I think there needs to be a universal education about insurance as a whole, very, very sophisticated that if you purchase the wrong product, you can be paying into life insurance for years, decades, only to find out that after a certain time you do not have it. That's extremely disturbing. Also, if you have folks family members who are on Title 19 or the ones in Title 19, there's a specific way that you want to deal with life of this, if they lose the assets. There's a lot of information that needs to be given to our community. I look at this as lifelong. So we have to begin to learn about it to ourselves and we see in our community. We have to be individual. The advocacy side is starting to come in. I want to stay on track.
All good, all good. I think it's, I'm sure it definitely is in the, title and a topic in itself that definitely will take a lot of unpacking. I'm here with my numbers again. 41% of adults approximately in the United States do not have sufficient life insurance coverage. And out of that, 13% of them are unsure if they even have a policy. So keep that in mind, guys. I want to talk to Maxine about a state plan. As I mentioned in her bio, it entails all attorney, living wills, trust. There are a couple of other terms out there that many of us have heard along with power of attorney, like healthcare proxy. Can you break some of those terms down for us?
Okay, let's start off with what is a will, right? We all know that that's pretty much the foundation of document planning. But the thing about a will is that it doesn't take effect until after you pass away. So another term is a trust. So normally there's a myth that the trust, right? You see this trust fund baby is this guy, he's driving around in his Porsche. The trust is for everyone, right? If you have assets, if you have younger family members, a trust is for you. The thing about a will is that when you have a will, it has to go through probate. It's what you guys think it is, right? You go to the court, hire an attorney, they get a death certificate, they file maybe hundreds sometimes of documents. And probate can take many years depending on what's going on with the court. It's not a quick fix. For a trust, which is a legal arrangement where a trustee holds your assets for your beneficiaries, I tell people that it's like a box. Everything is in this box. Trust is in effect the day that it's created and it's. What people don't know is that when you have a will and you go through probate, all of that information is public. It's all in public. Every single document that this attorney has filed with the court, and what did I say, it could be hundreds of pages, your name is there, your beneficiaries' names are there, your address is there, where you died, where you live, all of your assets, how much your house costs, how much you have in the bank, all of that is public knowledge. So when I go to the court, there are computers there. Sometimes people show up and they just scroll through the computers, taking all of that information with them, printing it out, writing it out. It's not like that with the trust, right? Because the trust is the box. You don't have to go through probate. You don't have to file all these documents. The box is just there for you to be given away. You don't have to go through the courts anymore. And another thing, when you have a will and you go through the court is going to decide what happens with your assets. Suppose you said, just an example, I hate my sister Brenda. I don't want her to be here in my, I'm definitely saying she's not here. She can come and petition the court and say, I have a right to some of those assets. And she might get those assets. When you have a will, it's not definite. When you have a trust, it's definite, right? Because everything's in that box. You never want to go through probate where now the court is deciding how your estate is going to be given out to you. So just think about that. When you speak with an estate's attorney and you think about, going through this planning phase, think about a trust. It's not just for, these wealthy people. It's for somebody that has any assets, that has minors, that has somebody they care about. Won't go through that probate process.
Thank you, Maxine. Question to the audience. If you have a box, raise your hands. Because we've heard box. And I can attest where I personally do not have a box, but I know the box. My mom has showed me the box. And as her only child, I in the past have been very scared of this box. She has brought it up. She would say something like, well, if something happens to me, everything is here. And I would say, Mom, why are you talking about that now? Like, no, stop. We're putting it in the atmosphere. Don't do that. Years later, the age that I am now, and she brings that box up, I'm more wary of how important knowing what's in that box and where that box is. And we're gonna touch on that, the wellness and the grieving aspect of it. Because in the beginning you mentioned, some family and loved ones will be distraught. So the box is very, very, very important. I just want to a follow-up question with you, Maxine. How soon should one look into putting together a living trust and or a will?
One of the myths is I'm young, right? I don't have to think about estate planning. I'm hip and young and happy. It's not just about money. It's all about, you might be disabled, you might be incapacitated. So, you need to think about estate planning, as young as 18. The moment that you're starting to work, the moment that you have your assets, the moment that you want your wishes to, be given out there. So, on that note, let's talk about power of attorney.
Let's do it.
So power of attorney, I mean, the name says it, it's power. It's a very powerful document. It's one of the most powerful documents in your estate planning. It grants someone the authority to have access to your legal and financial matters in case anything happens to you. Right? Unfortunately, you get into an accident, you're incapacitated. They're going to come and take your house if the bill's not paid. The bank isn't clear that you're in the hospital. Right? But when you have that power of attorney, you step into the shoes of that other person. So my mother, when she was incapacitated, thank God she had it. I walked into the bank, I said, this is what we're doing, these are the funds, this is the mortgage, and instantly I became her. That's how powerful the power of attorney is. But it has to be someone that you trust, because the power of attorney is so powerful that you can be sitting at home watching TV and your agent can sell your house to you. Right? So don't make the power of attorney your neighbor Betty or your friend up the road. It's powerful. The bank is not going to call and say, is this okay? Can I sell your house? No. Whoever shows up with that power of attorney, they can do whatever they want. That's how powerful it is. But it's needed. And I know everyone here has someone they trust. So make sure you get a power of attorney and make sure that it's someone that you trust is going to handle your affairs in case of.
Thank you for that, Maxine. Thank you so much. I wanted to chip in on the wellness aspect of it. When we talk to you, Karen. One thing that I find, and I'm sure many in the audience may find, is people tend to be afraid, of course, to talk about death or discuss arrangements for when their time comes. How should one be able to navigate feeling comfortable talks?
The first aspect is having the conversation. So first thing is that you got to get uncomfortable. You got to get uncomfortable with having that conversation. And it's complicated because as family members, we are complicated. Just in my experience working with people, there are people who want, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use these colloquialisms, but we are family, so I just keep it real. So they don't want Ray to be in charge of their affairs because Ray's life is not right. And what if the eldest child, I don't necessarily want the eldest child to be making decisions. I want this one to make decisions, but I don't want to have the conversation. So I avoid it, and then something happens. And then there's all this scrambling around that occurs. You really have to sit down with your loved one. And I also understand that, we talk a lot about village, okay, based on our kind of African tradition. Sometimes your village is not your children, for whatever reason that is, because life is life, and we all have complexities in our life. So whoever that village is, if that village is your best friend, if that village is your pastor and the first lady, if that village is someone who you hold very close and dear to you, or even your grandchildren, then you have to get the village together so that way you can begin to express What is it that you want? One issue that comes up a lot is the idea, and I know Brother Hill's going to cover this, about cremation versus burial. And we know that people are often forced to make decisions based on financial concerns. So it's important that you have a conversation. You have to even begin to just have the discussion. And it may not be resolved in one discussion. It might be the course of several discussions or conversations, but you have to begin to have the conversation about how you want things to be in order. And again, you're never really too old to do that. If you are a parent or if you're caring for someone, then you want to be able to make decisions about who's going to make a decision if you are not able to. And that's critical. But, you know, a lot of us pass down these traditions and the historical traumas. I don't want to tell the kids, I've heard people joke about, I don't want to tell the kids because now they're going to bury me if I tell them where the box is. They need to be able to know where the information is, because the worst thing that you want to do is to leave your family members, because guess what? None of us know the date, time, hour, nothing. So you really have to begin to have those kind of conversations about what it is that you want. And then from there, then you reach out to your resources. So you can go to the funeral home, even though no one is there yet, to talk about what are the options, because they have people that are there that can assist. Because the ugly truth about the funeral home is that it is a business. It is not a social services agency. The worst things that I've seen happen are people who have lost a loved one and then there's no money. And then they think that the funeral home can hold the body for X amount of days. And then they're surprised when the funeral home tells them that they're going to begin to charge a surcharge. So then people say, oh my God, that's just so cruel. It's a business. This is why it's important for us to really begin to have those kind of conversations with our loved ones, with our village, about what we would like to have should we transition. We're all going to transition. We all are going to transition. The first step is really having that difficult conversation, because later, who knows when later is going to happen.
Karen, thank you so much for that. I never thought about going to a funeral home to plan even before someone passed away. I never came to mind, and I thank for you for mentioning that, and that now pivots to Mr. Hill. You mentioned earlier 150 questions for planning a funeral. Wow. Would you mind just telling us a little bit more about the process when it comes to planning a funeral? And if you can, just an example of some of those questions that would be asked?
Sure. I didn't prepare to say.
Yeah.
It's the truth. You know, and we'll do everything that we can to do it. So regarding some of the process, there's a legal part of our business where we have to gather information, accurate information, for the certified death certificate. Certified death certificate is triggered to help you to gain access to your assets, life insurance, property, bank accounts, whatever that is. So the death certificate is critically important. It's important that the information is accurate as well. So we'll need to know where a person was, who they are, their full name, where they were born, their date of birth, their parents' names, mother's maiden name, where the person worked, whether the industry that they worked in, whether they were a veteran, the highest degree that they hold. These are some of the basic information that we need for the certified test. Now, it's important that we have everything accurate, because if you look up your lineage, your history, a lot of times People go to death certificates to find out who's married to who and so forth. So that information has to be extremely accurate. What happens a lot of times, we have blended families. You have a person who may have acted as a surrogate father, mother, and they're put down on the death certificate, but it's not legal, if you understand. And this happens a lot. Believe me when I tell you this, I'm actually going through this right now. A person came to me and they said, well, I'm the daughter. The father was with a woman for over 30 years, but he was still married to someone else. And the woman came in and said that I'm the daughter. But we put it down as the daughter. So a day or two before the funeral service, we had the son, the woman he was really married to, came back and made this huge statement. And now it's on its way to court.
Wow.
So it's important to have this information, have your own business in order. I know you know what I'm talking about. Many of us probably have that type of situation going on in our family somewhere down the line. Maybe it's not you, but it's someone that you know. It could be a friend, it could be anybody. But it's really important to get your information in order. So some other questions that you'll need to be able to answer. Let's just say we are planning a wedding in 1 to 2 weeks. Many of you have been married, you know what you went through to get married. There's a lot of detail to that. We're doing the same thing, but it's within a week or two. And it's under duress. Like I said, some folks don't have money. The first thing they're worried about is how to collect money. They got GoFundMe accounts, all kinds of crazy stuff going on, trying to fish together. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And you have to deal with your grief at the same time. Then you have to deal with the family dynamics, right? So the more you have your business in order, the better off you will be. And I'm not saying that to try to scare you to do anything to come use my service. I'm here to volunteer my time because I believe that we need this information. My goal is to give you a why. Not that you just have the information. I want you to have a why to actually do something. My expectation, I don't know if I can do this, my expectation is that every one of you can do something because we're giving you information. And this information is critical to us. We lose as a collective, we lose wealth by not being prepared. It happens every single day. When they get to the funeral home, it's just too late for us to even help you. But we're here volunteering our time. Hopefully we will take advantage of this.
Thank you so much for that, Ms. Dillon. You touched on something that it struck a peak in my mind, and it's something that is, I found common in my generation with the GoFundMe. And it's, you know, I personally have experienced a lot of loss within my age group and with amongst my family and my friends, whether it's sudden, whether they're sick, and for full transparency, I'm in my 40s. And these are people that I have traveled with, I have socialized with, I partied with, and do all the lavish luxury of things. And when the time has come, and also they'll have kids, they'll have families, and when this time comes, there's GoFundMes. They never had life insurance. They never had a plan in place. But mind you, we were just partying together and spending whatever amount of money you spend in the clubs, and you didn't have a life insurance, and you didn't have your affairs in order for your family, for your 3 or 4 kids that you have. And there's a GoFundMe. And I still try to be as sensitive as I can to the situation, but it really like grinds my gears with my generation where you can do all of this, but you can't get your affairs in order. And I'm like, we're really having to GoFundMe, and you just had like $10 in the bill. It just makes no sense. And I now want to go back to you, Justin, since we're talking about the GoFundMe's. I want to kind of scale back a bit on some of the key aspects that I have heard. And I don't know if you're, whether you're in the audience, if you're a city or state worker, there are such things as like death pensions, there's the retirement plans, there's 401ks. Do those, key assets, are there any other key assets we should focus on that can best prepare us for either when that unexpected time comes, or can we live comfortably while still preparing for our time?
Most definitely. Happy that you brought up the retirement plans and the 401k plans, because one of the things that I find, especially managing 401k plans, I can't tell you how many times I've reached out to former employees of companies to just say, hey, you have money in this company in the 401k plan. Let me just give you what your options are as far as, either moving that money to a new company's 401k plan, maybe rolling it out to an IRA so you stay consolidated. Depending on what your age is, you can just take that money out, pay taxes on it. But there's obviously penalties if you're under a specific age. But to that point, I can't tell you how many people say, I completely forgot I had money in that plan. And I'm like, how do you forget about $20,000, $30,000? And it surprises me every time. But typically, if you leave a company, you have the option of leaving your money in that plan. And if you do decide to do that, one of the main things that I would say you should do is make sure that you go through the process of updating your beneficiaries. Because a lot of times people, one, don't consolidate their accounts as they move on in their careers, but they secondly don't go back to make sure that their beneficiaries are updated. And as we're discussing, you might have a situation where, you get remarried and you have a plan as far as where you think your assets are going. You never updated your beneficiaries, so now they're going to folks that you didn't exactly plan for. And that's really on your retirement side, on your retirement plan side, your assets move by way of beneficiary. So anything that's in an IRA or individual retirement account or 401k plan, that's all based on how you structure your beneficiaries. And again, we talked about trust. You can name your trust as your beneficiary on your 401k plan assets. From a taxable account standpoint, so say if you have a brokerage account, or if you have a checking account or savings account, one thing that we find people typically do as they get older, as they have possibly caregivers, is they add those caregivers as owners on their accounts. And typically it's done to just make the transaction process easier. So you're taking someone to the doctor's office and just be able to pay a copay. But and Attorney Jeffers can definitely touch on this, but how you structure the titling of your accounts is very important. Because say, again, you have an idea on your will of how you want your assets to be transferred. If you have joint accounts with people, you pass away, the person who's that joint account then becomes an owner of that account, regardless of what your will says. There's also other documents from a standpoint of ease of transferring more taxable assets or brokerage assets, specifically what's called a transfer on death certificate. And that could be, again, that's an item that would supersede your will on a brokerage account or a taxable account or a checking account. So if you have a transfer on death with your bank that says, if I pass away, move these assets to this account and this person, that will supersede what your will says. But it's also a way to kind of transfer those assets faster to give your family, faster access to the capital that they may need to pay for your funeral. One other point that I'll make, I know I kind of talked about small business owners previously. I'll also talk about folks that might have significant investments in real estate. Things that I see when I speak to real estate investors is you might have a massive portfolio in real estate and think, okay, I have this great portfolio in real estate, but thinking about the time it takes to actually sell that property if you were to pass away. And this is where life insurance can definitely become a very important aspect of your planning. is thinking about the time frame it takes to sell that building when your family needs the liquidity, with also knowing that, the people that they're selling them to know that your family kind of needs this money faster, and they might not have the ability to make the best deal as possible, for selling that business. So, that life insurance in that situation can be a nice stopgap, to kind of help your family, again, have faster access to capital while they take time to really, be able to liquidate your assets and, how you're strong.
I see what you had said.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. So as I stated before, if you have the will and we're going through probate, depending on what the situation is, it might take years to get letters of administration. Right? This is the most important document. It now states that you can do anything you want to do with the estate. If you don't have this piece of paper, if you don't have these letters of administration, you can't sell the house. Can't sell the house. You can't sell the house though if it's in a trust. Because again, I have the box, I gave it to you, you own the box, you sell the house tomorrow. You can do whatever you want. Power of attorney, and thank you so much for asking about this. The power of attorney ends when the decedent passes. Remember how powerful that power of attorney was? It's so powerful and it's the best. It ends the moment that that person passes away. So now you don't have that power any longer. Remember I said you can sit on the couch and someone's selling your house? That's not. The moment that that person passes away, the power of attorney also expires. Again, if you have the trust, you can sell the house instantly. This now belongs to you. You instantly get access to those assets. When you have a will and you have to go through probate, it can take a while. In New York, after COVID, everything slowed down. They're still backed up. I have certain estates that take 1 to 2, sometimes 3 years to go through because there's so much going on. Or maybe there's family members arguing. And, if people keep bringing lawsuits, then the court can't just say, well, here are these letters. They have to go through court. We have to keep getting, return dates. Maybe your return date is in 7 months. Right? Probate it's very emotional. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, time consuming and very costly. And guess who gets all that money? The attorney. The attorney ends up winning at the end. They end up getting a large chunk of your estate, but not if it's.
It's so funny you bring that up because I became a situation in my head, literally, a situation with my uncle, my sister, and his wife, and he wasn't sick, but she was. He passed away before her, and she passed away 4 days after him. He had a power of attorney, but to your point, once he passed away, it expired. But unbeknownst, so now you're dealing with two families. You're dealing with the uncle, my uncle's side, and you're dealing with the wife, her side. Unbeknownst to us, the wife put her brother as a living trust. And he had the power to sell their house and take everything from the house, including my uncle's stuff. So this is why I was just like, wow. And now and this is why I really appreciate that we're being able to have this conversation, because that breakdown of a living trust versus a will is very, very, very important. Very, very important. So thank you so much for touching on that. I want to touch back a little bit more on the, go back to Mr. Hill. Go back to Mr. Hill. What are some of the, like we're talking about power of attorneys, we're talking about living trust, we're talking about will, we're talking about death benefit, death pensions. When it comes to planning, what are some of the proper, like, documents that may be needed, or the proper things that may be needed? That's the first thing you need when you're walking into your home. Are there any particular documents that one should have in hand? That's when they walk in.
I like to think of pre-planning as a restaurant. So whatever you need for a qualified food service. Whatever you need for that, you need for pre-planning. The difference is that you're not under duress. No one has passed away. So you have time to actually think through the best possible scenario for you. We can sit down, we can talk, but typically we're going to need death certificate information. If you have marriage certificates or divorce decrees, that will help. If the person was a veteran, you want to get a copy of the DD 214. There's certain veterans benefits, rights that they receive as it relates to burial. If you do not have that, that DD 214, you can't gain access to that information. If you have life insurance policies that you want, some people will fund their pre-planning services with a life insurance policy. What that means is that you pledge a life insurance policy. Sometimes people will change the beneficiary to the funeral just to ensure that Spooky and Ray Ray doesn't have access or doesn't do the wrong thing with the life insurance policy. I like to joke around.
We like your, and this also helps with it, making it uncomfortable conversation comfortable.
Yes, absolutely. But anything you can do to sort of prepare yourself, you do that with the funeral. I would also encourage you to do it earlier, updated as well. If you talk about life insurance, you have beneficiaries who pass away. You have to really, truly have to change that beneficiary because being a beneficiary of a life insurance policy is a gift. It's not a requirement. Just because you have a life insurance policy, a lot of people believe that they're supposed to pay for the funeral service. They don't have to do it. They have the right to receive that benefit. They do not have a right to pay. They don't have a requirement to pay for a funeral service. I don't know if I'm making sense to you, but some folks will actually believe that and they put a lot of pressure on beneficiaries. They don't have to do anything. We had situations where this was in my mind, it was pretty bad, but there was a mother who had a life insurance on a son, and he died. He didn't have life insurance, and everyone was thinking that the mom was going to use the life insurance policy, and he just walked away.
Wow.
So just please take heed to what we're talking about, because when you get to the point where you have to sit down and talk to them directly, it becomes very real at that time. And there's a lot of pressure, trust me when I say it.
Wow, thank you for that. Story. Very interesting. Karen, I'm curious. What do you think are some key things that one should keep in mind as they grieve and planning, as well as the grieving process? What is that?
Regarding the grieving process, one of the things I think that we do as friends and family members of people, supporting people who are grieving, is we want to put a time limit on their grief. And people will have lost a loved one, and it's been 2 years. It could be 10 years, and when you start talking, the energy rises. Time limit on the person's grief. It could be 10 years down the road, and they're grieving as if it was yesterday. Sometimes, as a supportive friends and family members, oh my God, they should have got over that already. Why are they still acting this way? And I'm not saying that we should be supportive and even sometimes raise questions if we feel that within a person's grieving that things are right or that they're having challenges. In those instances, then we want to be able to provide them with support and then maybe further where they need to speak to, whether it is a pastor, whether that is a professional community. We ourselves as Black people, we certainly have relied on our faith and the church to be able to provide us with that support. There's nothing wrong with seeking support in addition to that. Speaking with someone who is a professional, because it's two different sets of skills. It's two different sets of focus, will. So there's nothing wrong with going to your trusted religious leader as well as seeking professional help if things feel like it's going out of hand. Because if you haven't gone through the grieving process, it is something people can tell you all of these things. That's another thing we do. We're going to tell each other how you're going to grieve. Oh my God, you're going to see ghosts. You're going to see things drop from the sky, and people will give you all kinds of prescriptions about how to manage grief, but your own experience will be unique. And then as you're going through it, you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize I was going to feel this way. Or you may have said, I've gone a year and everything's fine, and then something passes. You smell a scent or something, and it triggers something. There's nothing wrong with being able to reach out to someone, and there's a lot of support services within our community. Again, I'm going back to the funeral homes. Most of them have bereavement services. If you are working with a healthcare agency or service, they have counseling and bereavement services. And a lot of services are available to you as a family for no charge. Maybe sometimes it's a year or 2 years after the person has gone on. If you work, you have insurance, so then you can also keep someone that can assist you with managing that process. So that's the first thing I'd like to encourage people to do, is to really deal with your grief and to know that there is no time
Yes and no, we can take them
on
off.
with that process. And then, connecting and
Yes.
being with other people, being open
Yes.
to receiving support. Because, we pride ourselves on being very independent, got this and we can get through it. But there's nothing wrong with leaning on and receiving help. The joke is that when you lose a loved one, everybody surrounds you for like 2 weeks, and then after that, you're kind of out there. So we, as a community, we have to also remember that our loved ones that we support will need that ongoing. So nothing is greater than sometimes just a random text from someone. Say, I was just thinking about you. I'm just saying that. Or the phone call that's just like checking. So not only do we have to respect that the grief process is going to be unique and different, but that we need to rely on our village to be able to provide support, and the village needs to be able to provide the support for that person, no matter how long that process takes.
Thank you so much for that, Karen. And one thing I certainly am a firm believer of, you can't put a time on grief.
Read the card.
To your point, you cannot put a time on grief. I've witnessed it with my own parents when their parents passed away. My grandparents have passed away now over 20 years, and my dad still grieves for my grandmother. My mom still grieves for my grandmother and grandfather. So you definitely cannot put a time on grief. And you also can't tell anybody how to feel when they are dealing with the loss of a loved one. You can't tell them how to feel. But the only thing we can do is just be that support for them, provide the resources. A simple how you're doing goes a very long way. Those are just some things I would advise you guys to keep in mind whenever you have someone that is dealing with a loved one and caring for something.
I was just going to say grief looks different too. For some people, grief is they're just silent. They don't want to be bothered. For other people, grief could be very emotional. It's just respecting whatever that space that person is in, just to be able to provide support.
Thank you for that, Karen. And I'm going to get one final question, and after I'm going to open the floor to some questions. And I believe some of you have written questions on a card. I have the lovely Shirley is going to collect. If you have, you can give it to her. We'll read the questions off and have our amazing panelists answer them. So my final question, and this is for each one of you. What would you advise? What advice would you give to those of us who might feel too lost or intimidated to even start the process of planning?
I would say that it's never too late to start the process of planning, because whether you didn't start it yesterday, you have the opportunity to start it tomorrow. And again, it's really about protection and risk management and making sure that you're covered. I think also asking the right questions to avoid costly pitfalls is very important as well.
Thank you, Justin.
So as you are having this conversation, as I've encouraged people to do, begin to write down the questions, because there's a lot of steps. There's things that are going to be very overwhelming that you're not sure of, and then sometimes we get afraid when we think we're not asking the right questions, or I should know this because I'm X, Y, Z. It's not something that we are necessarily born to know, to understand how to navigate this, especially as you're talking about finances. You know, the market is trending. The cost of funeral services, how to plan. Everything changes the same way the world changes. So then, as you're sitting down having the conversations, be able to write questions that you need the answers to. So then that way that can help you direct you to the resources that you need to help pull some of those things together so that you can begin the planning. So there's no such thing as a dumb question. So then as you're writing questions down, if you're working with whoever you're working with, maybe you delegate one or two people to try to get the answer to the question. Because we all have friends and family that may know of resources, but to begin to say, well, the thoughts that you have about, well, what's going to happen with this? Who will take care of my kids if that happens? What about the house? And then even planning for the care when we start talking about Medicare and Medicaid. Again, another common thing. The state's going to take my house. What exactly does that mean? What is that around the state taking the house? You know, because as we begin to talk about care needs, some of us or our loved ones may require long-term care, and then long-term care is expensive, and then you have to rely on other sources. So being able to understand exactly what that means by answering those questions and seeking out the resources, at least those are first steps, but then getting the answers to the questions so that you can begin to plan in terms of whether it's financial or you're going to do the prepaid or speak with an attorney. I mean, we could probably take each one of these speakers and have a 2-hour conversation in each person's area. So this is a very jam-packed conversation.
Thank you, Chairman.
I would say, just do it very simple. Just do it. Take the step, right? We're all victims of our own habits, victims of our own mind. You know, we can see what's good for us. We don't do it. Today, I hope we gave you some information that will help you to start to think differently, so that you can take different course of action that will help you, your family, and your community.
Please don't be intimidated by the price. Please don't think, well, you know, I have to get an attorney. Let me go online and, you know, do it myself. Please don't do that. And I'm not saying that because I, you know, want all lawyers to be filthy rich, right? I'm saying that because it's the truth, right? Whoever's organizing these online documents, maybe they don't comply with the state's regulations and the state's laws. So now you've gone through that whole process and you think that you have something and you're handing this to your family, and you come to find out that those documents really don't mean too much. Because if there's one thing about the law is that it's constantly changing, right? And that's why attorneys have continuing legal education that we are mandated to take, because the laws always change. So please just don't think about that expense of hiring the attorney. Find an estate attorney, speak to your family and friends that have already done estate planning, see if they have recommendations. The couple of thousands of dollars that you might be investing today for your family, it's nothing compared to how much money that could possibly be coming in. How much money the attorneys will take later on when your family members are fighting over an old bicycle, because I've seen it. Right? All of the money that it takes for you to continuously pay the court. The court has a lot of fees every time you show up. You know, I charge by the hour. Every single thing that I do, I got to charge you for every single move, every single motion. Don't let that happen, right? Get that estate planning together now. Don't let it wait and put that on your loved ones, because they just want to grieve. They just want to celebrate your life. They don't want to have to look around and wonder, is there a deed? Whose name is in the deed? Do we have assets? Where are the bank accounts? Do we have bank accounts? All right, we're gonna put all of that stuff in one place. We're gonna reach out to an estate planning attorney, and we're gonna make sure all those things are ready for your family members. Estate planning is so important because it ensures that your assets are distributed for your wishes. It minimizes legal consequences, and it protects your loved ones from unnecessary financial and emotional stress. Right? Remember, it's the last gift you can give to your loved ones is making sure that you have organized your estate.
Thank you so much for that, Maxine. That is amazing. I'm gonna, excuse me, I'm gonna open the floor to any questions, as well as I hope we have some cards. And of course, if there's any other questions that comes to mind from any of you in the audience, please do not hesitate to raise your hand, and we'll be happy to bring the mic over to you to ask your question. Share it, yeah.
Okay. So can we just have a few questions for you? Just kind of what you said that what would be the range of the service?
Certain attorneys have a flat fee where they will organize your will and your healthcare proxy and your living will, all your advanced directives, and they'll just charge one fee. But honestly, when it comes to a trust, it's a little bit more expensive, right? Because it's so specific to you, and there's other details that you have to deal with. So even after you create the trust, you still have to fund it. So now you have to go and change the deed for your mortgage. It's got to be in the name of the trust. Your accounts have to be in the name of the trust. And one thing that your attorney might do also is now create a pour-over will. So what a pour-over will is that the things that you haven't put into the trust, the pour-over will state that in case things haven't been put in the trust, please look at this pour-over will and please just make sure that it's in the trust. All right, so it's really hard to say what that number is. Different attorneys charge different things, but a lot of times, like I stated, outside of the trust, sometimes they'll do a flat fee, or like myself, they'll do hourly. But, just put aside a couple of $1,000s and to be ready.
If so, do they have different quote unquote benefits? For example, real estate. Can one executor receive a property but not the other?
So the person who will be in charge of the trust will be the trustee. There are different kinds of trusts. So a revocable trust is a trust that you can organize, but you can't change it later. Right? So suppose you want your sister to now be in charge of your real estate. In the trust, you can also say that you want your brother to be in charge of your children. Right? The trust is what you make it. The trust belongs to you. It's whatever you want. It's however you want this to be done. Because again, the thing about estate planning is your wishes. So that's why you make sure you do it, because you don't want your family to have to decide what these things are. If there's one thing I know in this industry and as a mediator, families fight. Right? Your best friend, you guys are best friends today. Someone passes away, there's that fight in the backyard, and we're going to court and spending tens of thousands of dollars to fight for this fight. So there can be more than one trustee, and you can decide exactly what you want that trustee to be in charge. And one last thing, that's a revocable trust that can be changed. You can change it anytime. You can stop it. An irrevocable trust can't be changed. Once you make this irrevocable trust, it's set in stone. But one thing about the law is that there's always an exception to an exception. So it can be broken down one day. But in general, we say that an irrevocable trust cannot be changed after you have created it. But what's special about the irrevocable trust is that it protects against Medicaid, Medicare, all of those expenses. So in New York, there's a 5-year look back when you are maybe trying to get Medicaid and go into a nursing home. We have this 5-year look back. If all of those assets have been put into the irrevocable trust 6 years ago, you have no assets. So now the state can't come and take your house. They can't touch your assets because it has been locked into the trust 5 years prior. So again, if you're at this point where you're thinking about that sort of future, and what that looks like and protecting your home, irrevocable trust.
Another question in regards to real estate. If my husband and I purchase property overseas, what country's laws would observe my rights, beneficiaries, and instruction? Can a trust in the U.S. protect my interests overseas?
That's a good question. So again, with the trust, if you put that property into the trust, then you give that box over to that person, they should be able to access that with no issues. However, with that being said, different countries have different laws and different rules. So maybe I'm making the statement, but maybe in Jamaica, maybe it's something totally different. So that's something that you would speak to your attorney about, and your attorney, of course, would know about all these assets because you will make a list of all assets, and your attorney will advise you on what the laws are. Yeah.
In regards to burial insurance, is burial insurance built into one's life insurance?
It's, depending on the insurance policy, it can be. As we mentioned before, there's different riders as far as, different options that you can choose as far as, what coverage you have. And then also from an estate planning perspective, that ability to really say how you want your assets to be used after you're gone. That's another really good important information to add into, the trust or assets that you're, into.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Think that they don't have enough property or, whatever I have is gonna go to my children and will be divided equally. For people who don't think they have enough assets to do anything, what would you advise?
Thank you for that question.
I think if you own a home, I think it should be in a trust. If you have young children and you want to make sure that they are taken care of a certain way, I would say put that information in the trust. And if you have a family member that has special needs, they need a trust. Because guess what? If you have a special needs family member and you have a trust, then Medicaid can't touch those assets. Social Security can't touch those assets, right? You still want Medicaid, you still want Social Security, but you also want to make sure that their money is kept safe. Suppose their mother passes away. If we don't have that special needs trust, then now they can get access to that. So, you've heard me all day talk about how great the trusts are. I think they're great. And if you have a question of, do I need a trust? Speak with an attorney. Bring your assets and let them know, this is what I have, this is what I don't have. What do you think? Should I get a trust? If you're an 18-year-old and you work at McDonald's and you live in an apartment, maybe you don't need a trust right now. But if you're a person who has children, if you're a person who has some assets, I say speak to the attorney, give them a couple of $1,000s and get the trust going. Because other aspects of the trust, great things about the trust, it avoids probate. We don't want to go through probate, right? If there's one thing I want you to leave here today, we don't want probate. We don't want the court deciding on where our assets are going to be going and how our assets are going to be distributed. We don't want that, right? It also reduces estate tax. A lot of people don't understand that when you pass away, guess what? The government's going to show up. Sorry about your loss. Where's my cut? It protects from creditors and it protects from lawsuits. And again, it provides for your minor children. So, think about it. Think about getting a trust.
Thank you for that. I have two more questions from the audience. This one's for Justin. As mentioned, accidental and dismemberment insurance or misrepresentation, were those vehicles pushed in the Black communities rather than whole life insurance?
I'm not exactly sure, but, again, when it comes to looking at your insurance, it's very important to make sure that, you're asking some of the right questions. And I did write down some of these things, something I wanted to say, ask the right questions, but I'll tell you what the right questions are, right? I think, one is to really understand the coverage, right? If there's different riders, if there's different pieces that you're including into your insurance policies, especially for whole life insurance policies that are specifically ways for you to get access to that money while you're still living. Make sure you understand, how those riders work, understand the cost structure of those additional riders, because the additional, things that you build into your insurance policy may add on to the monthly or annual cost. Understand the fees from a surrender standpoint. So again, when we're talking about whole life insurance, you might say, I don't want to pay for this anymore, right? You might get 10 years down the road and say, I don't know if I need this policy anymore. Understand that there's some fees associated with, canceling that policy. And typically, those fees are larger in the first 7 years, and then they decline as you go through what's called that surrender policy. So that's very important because, obviously I work for Merrill Lynch. We have a number of different services and solutions to be able to really strategize and structure people's journeys. But one thing that I find is that when people work with companies that are really just insurance focused, that company only has one way to really implement these different strategies. So say if your goals, say something happens out of left field and your goals were to change and now you need liquidity, but that insurance policy really isn't built for, that change in strategy, and you don't have the ability to get access to your money without paying, high fees. That's very important to think about. This goal that I'm setting right now might not be the same goal that I have 5, 10 years from now, depending on what might happen.
Thank you for that, Justin. So you want to ask?
Yeah, just wanted to try and that question. You can Google this. I believe that there have been several class action lawsuits that have taken place in the past where you look it up, it bring you to life insurance and we're in the Black community, where there was a push to sell burial policy, they call it penny policy. And basically what was going on, this happens very prevalent down in the South, is you'd have a life insurance agent who would come and go door to door to collect money for a penny policy. Maybe $1,000 death benefit, $2,000 death benefit, which may have been enough money back in the day to do a funeral service, but it's not even enough to buy flowers nowadays. All right. So there has been class action lawsuits where there have been predatory actions targeted towards the Black community. And I just want to, I wanted to raise that point because we are always part as a community, right? So our spending power is very helpful to everyone else except us, which is the reason why I love what we're doing here today, because hopefully we're giving you some ammunition to change, slightly make some adjustments within your household, how you're spending your money to sort of redirect it in a way that will help you, your family, and also your community.
Thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you. And my last question from the audience is for Maxine. Trust property or transfer on death assets as beneficiaries, are there tax consequences or capital gains?
That's a loaded question that comes with a lot of information with capital gains and taxes. I mean, what a trust does is, it decreases those taxes, right? Again, it's the perfect thing for a state plan, right? All the things that we've mentioned are protections when everything's. So it definitely helps.
Thank you so much for that. And before I go to the closing, does anybody else in the audience have a question?
Just to comment, actually, so what, to Justin's point, on the employer's plans, like you had your retirement plan, your employer-sponsored life insurance, it's very important to make sure you do name beneficiaries, even if you start the company and you're 22 years old. It doesn't happen automatically, and your life insurance beneficiary for your employer-sponsored life insurance is different from your retirement plan beneficiary. And it does not transfer over, it doesn't spill over. So you contact the retirement plan company and make beneficiary there, and then the life insurance that may have to do an open enrollment, but it's not an automatic. And if you are married, it's also important to keep that in mind. And for some retirement plans, your spouse is automatically a beneficiary. If you remarry, you must change the beneficiary, and you like someone other than your spouse, it requires that.
The others?
Is to really get your own personal sense of what your assets look like. If you haven't done that yet, just to do a calculation in terms of what your assets look like. And I mean, that can include your savings or bank accounts, 401ks, the property you have. It seems tedious, but I'm like practicing what I preach. You have to sit down and really get an accounting in terms of what is your worth, and then what is your potential worth. And again, there's resources and folks here on the panel that can probably direct you in terms of trying to do that, but you need to figure out what you're worth.
Thank you for that, Eva. I don't know about you. I don't know about you guys, but I got a lot of jewels today. I hope you guys did as well. I want you guys all to give yourselves a round of applause for doing the hardest job, which is showing up and getting this information and opening your minds and your hearts to such an uncomfortable topic, and giving you guys the opportunity now to take this with you out into the world and share it with those that you know, and continue the conversation, if not within your families, with your friends, at the dinner table, at brunch, happy hour, and wherever you guys choose. I would like to thank each and every one of you for just taking the time, as I said today, and entrusting us in bringing such an uncomfortable but very important conversation to the forefront. We really and truly hope that the jewels that you received today you will take with you and utilize them in your lives, as well as share the knowledge with others. On behalf of the Omicron Group Salon Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and the Culture Pro Foundation, I'd like to express the utmost and sincerest gratitude and thank you to the Union Baptist Church, Reverend Bradley, and Lady Keolani Bradley for opening their doors, their love and support to us at this event. A very special thank you to Brother Winfred Mitchell. Thank you for keeping us fabulous on the cameras, for coordinating our technology, and recording our panel, which will be posted on both the Union Baptist Church's YouTube as well as the Culture Pro Foundation's YouTube in the coming days. As a thank you, we would like to make a pledge to make a generous donation to the church at a later date, and we have that here. To our amazing panelists, thank you. I am very confident that everything that you guys taught us today did not fall on deaf ears at all. It did not. We appreciate your professionalism, your knowledge, and the time that you made for us today for this very important conversation. And as a thank you, we would like to make a pledge to make a very generous donation to any organization of your choice. Thank you to our amazing Building Our Economic Wealth Committee. Some of the members are here. I love you guys dearly. Thank you for the hard work and dedication to executing a successful panel. A very, 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 very special thank you to Valerie Adams Baker, who is not only a member of our chapter, she's also a member and trustee of the Union Baptist Church.
We the
Thank
you?
Valerie. Yes, please give a round of applause. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Valerie, for your guidance and support and your help and resources for bringing this vision as well as very important conversation to life. And with that, I wish you guys all a safe travels home. Thank you again for making the time to join us. And thank you again. My name is Chanel Adams, and I wish you guys a safe journey home. To Chanel.
So thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for attending our first on chat in person. Thank you, everyone.